Well, I'm here with Andy Palmer, the director of the re-education of Molly Singer. This is a pretty funny comedy. Like the setups, I was trying to describe it on the podcast, kind of like a American Pie kind of college kind of humor thing.
Yep.
It's really sweet and funny. And I'm looking at your filmography, and you're kind of all over the board as far as genre. So,
I'm a
what
journeyman.
that there you go. I guess that would be the question. Like, of all the genres you've hit, do you have a favorite that you like working within, or do some come easier for you than others?
I always wanted to do comedy. That was like I got into filmmaking. When I started falling in love with filmmaking, my heroes were, Kevin Smith and Richard Linklater and Edward Burns. Those were the guys that I just, that I wanted to be. I wanted to make, my own Days and Confused, my own Clerks, my own Brothers McMullen. So that was how I wanted to come up. And as I came up through editing. I still edit to this day. In fact, as soon as you and I get off the phone, I'm going to hop over and start editing a TV show. So that's still how I pay a lot of the bills. And then in the directing realm, on the low budget fare, comedy is very difficult because comedy oftentimes, unless you are that pie in the sky, that Clerks or something like that, it's hard to do a comedy without name actors and stuff. So my partner and I started getting into doing genre stuff. And then as soon as I was never a huge horror fan because horror movies scare the crap out of me personally. I still watch them with my eyes closed. But I loved going to, like, once we started making scary movies, going to horror conventions and Horror Hound and Days of the Dead and Monster Palooza, all these places, and meeting the horror community. And these people are amazing. And then I was just like, I just want to make horror movies so I can keep hanging out with horror fans because they're the coolest people on the planet. But when the opportunity for Molly Singer came around, I had to jump on it because I really wanted to make a comedy, and I feel more at home in comedy.
Yeah, I had. So we got Todd Friedman and Kevin Haskin are the writers of this. Um, Usually, like in a drama and horror, you figure a lot of what's being said and portrayed is on the page. That's not
Mhm.
always the case with comedy. Um what's the script look like as compared to what ended up on screen? Because like there's certain lines that people say, it's like, are they like that great of an actor that they can just sell the line that good, or is that something they came up with on the spot? Sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah, yeah. Tonally the same, but oftentimes extremely different. And I was very emphatic that, like, if you're going to get all these funny people to be in your movie, all these incredibly talented people, you got to let them play. And so, that was something that Kevin and Todd and I talked about, and then something that I sort of carried over to when I was discussing the movie with my DP Philippe Vanderwall. I was like, it's going to be about reps. We have to minimize our setups. We have to make sure that, we have two cameras going so that if people are improving, we're able to cut in between those cameras quite often without, because if somebody says something different and you're shooting one camera, oftentimes the reaction shot's never going to match and stuff like that. So we cross shot as much as we could. And that allowed the actors to have a lot of takes, and everybody was different. Britt would do exactly what was on the page, and then I would start throwing her ideas, and she'd be like, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. And she would be able to just immediately integrate that idea into the next take. Nico would come to set every day with ideas. He'd be like, hey man, looking at sides last night, I have like 40 different things I want to say for this line. Like the scene where, they're walking out after they've been rejected from the housing office, and he goes, this is the worst idea you've had since we both tried anal bleaching. That was 100% Nico's line, and he had 37 others that were varying degrees of dirtiness. And so that was really cool. And then Jamie would be like, she knew exactly what she wanted to say, and she was really great about being like, this is too wordy, this doesn't work, but this works really well. I'm going to emphasize this. And so she came in like sort of very confidently. And then with Jamie, it was just like, you didn't have to do many takes at all because she just would nail it, in one take. And you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll move on.
Yeah, one of the it's kind of an undercover line. It's not like really out there, but I kind of chuckled at it when was it Elliot? He's at they pull his pants down and he gets the boner, and then
Yeah.
it's Nico in the background. That's a big dick.
That was totally Nico again. I was just like, oh my God, this guy's he's just so hilarious. He is so hilarious. Yes, all Nico.
I mean that's kind of what inspired the question anyway, because like I'm thinking of like typing in like that's big dick under his breath, how do you even write that on the page? But
Yeah, you don't.
also I mean you mentioned you do a lot of editing, and for like looks like some reality television, which I'm guessing you just get piles and piles and piles of footage to narrow down. That's got to help with the filmmaking I aspect, I
I
assume.
I feel 100% blessed that I came up in non-scripted and I still cut non-scripted because you're exactly right. Is basically when you're a non-scripted editor, you're tasked with a big bevy of footage, and usually you have a story producer, and the two of you or the three of you work to basically craft the script using the footage. And so it's like you're telling the story in a slightly different way. But what it does for me is that when I'm in the edit room on a scripted or scripted show or a movie, it's like you know that you can steal from all these different places. Oh, I can steal the reaction shot from this take, and I can split screen this, and you do all these little things to elicit, a reaction. Whenever you watch like David Fincher takes it to like an entirely new level. He shoots 400 takes, but then within every take, you see his editor like, oh, well, he liked the reaction of this background extra over here, so we stitched that out and we put it. It's incredible how powerful editing is to help shape the story, and I feel really blessed that that's how I came up in the entertainment industry.
Yeah. And do you think that works better for like comedies or than it would for like a drama or like
Yes.
like for instance, like God, I can't even think of it. Like a David Lynch movie is a very specific movie. So
Yeah.
you want the shot and you want the tone that you're going for. They're not really movies that you can just kind of throw together because it doesn't work that way. Whereas
Yeah.
comedy, you want to get the best joke, the best reaction and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think that I always tell, I was telling my producer when we were making Camp Coldbrook, and we shot it in like 18 days and stuff like that. And I was telling him like tension takes time because it's all about planning. You can't edit your way into scary. You can't edit your way into tension. That has to be created on set. You can enhance it with music, you can enhance it with pacing, but you're never going to sell it if it doesn't happen in camera. And comedy, you can do that a little bit more. You can really kind of craft stuff to make things funnier. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Also, like in the you know, we're in the age of YouTube and TikTok, so there's a bunch of hate the word, but content creators out
Yeah.
there. And so like a lot of people are editing. What's some like people just getting into making videos? What's some early mistakes you've made with editing that after doing it for a while, it's like just skip that because that's going to be a mistake going forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. So many like lessons that I learned. One of the first shows that I was an assistant editor on was actually an online. It was like an online show called Brawny Academy, and it was like this tie-in with Brawny paper towels. But the people that produced it were all producers from Survivor, and they were on hiatus from Survivor. So all the editors that came on board this little web series were all Survivor editors. And Survivor is the king of reality television. It's
Yeah.
been on for what, 20 some years. And I remember watching and learning so much from those editors on pacing, on music, on my one of the editors, his name is Jubin. He was like, man, audio sells the cut. He's like, you always have to focus on your audio because the visuals people will forgive. They will never forgive bad audio edits, and they won't forgive bad music edits. It gets seared in their mind. They know something's wrong even if they can't put their finger on it. And he's like, if you can sell the audio, then you'll sell the cut. And I always try to take that with me wherever
Yeah.
I'm cutting something.
I hate to put you on the spot with that, but like it's easy to say like bad audio. Can you give an example of what a bad audio would be in a certain scene?
Any sort of like crazy lip flap, or like like any sort of like anything being even a few frames out of sync will throw people off. Music hitting at the wrong time. If you sting music at the right time, it just enhances a scene so much. If you sting music on someone's line and it cuts their line off, then you lose all the energy of anything. The challenge in Molly Singer, beyond any movie that I've ever done, music in a horror movie or a drama is actually much easier because it so enhances the mood of something. Comedy, it has to be treated so much lighter, and it's really difficult to nail the sound. And our composers were they were really amazing. But I will say that I took more time with the composers on this movie than any movie that I'd ever done, simply because the music had to just sort of fit perfectly in the humor and accentuate it in a certain way that I hadn't ever anticipated it being. Like in past horror movies, I know that like on Witness Infection, I literally did one round of notes with the composer, and everything to me was like, this is perfect. I feel great about this. And on Molly Singer, we went back and forth a lot more.
Yeah. What would be an example of a note that you give a composer or vice versa?
A lot of times it's like, is the music fighting? Like if the music is overpowering the scene, then we have to pull back on it. In comedy, I've noticed, because everything, especially this movie, that's so sort of like dialogue, and we have so many like subtle lines, I had to tamp down on percussion a lot, because if you have something that's very percussive, it's just sort of hitting the same tone that the actors are speaking, and so it conflicts with it. It just gets in the way of it. So that's sort of something that we'd have to do.
Yeah. And what about writing too? Because you've done some writing. Like how does that well, it looks like the most of the stuff you wrote was pretty early, but does any of that factor into the editing and the directing? Like how do like all this stuff ties together, obviously, but
100%.
like but there's a lot of crossover in certain techniques you use on the different
Yeah.
different
and,
things.
and editing the same way, is that like it is really like editing has taught me so much about pacing and tone, and being like conservative in terms of like pushing you to push the visuals in a script. Anytime you're writing a screenplay and stuff like that, and I see this especially when I'm reading scripts with writers that maybe haven't directed anything before, or haven't been on a set, or haven't been through the whole process of making a film. There's so much emphasis on trying to create that picture in words. You know, I don't know if I'm saying this quite right, where it's basically like they're trying to paint the picture with the words themselves rather than creating the picture with the action. And so a lot of times it's like the action line will be just one line, and then I just get like a big swath of dialogue. And I'm like, I kind of prefer it the other way, where it's like I see more action visually. How are you sort of visually setting this scene up, and then parsing down the dialogue into its smallest parts? I always say that like that dialogue in a movie should be the color commentary in like a football game, right? You're not doing play by play. You're doing the color commentary. You're adding the little interesting details. The play by play needs to be the picture.
Yeah, I think because I read Inglourious Basterds, and Quentin Tarantino, a lot of people praise him for his dialogue, but what they seem to miss is that, like, when you read Inglourious Basterds, that opening scene,
Yeah.
I saw that opening scene before I saw the movie. Like, he painted that picture in my head, and the dialogue was there, but also the action lines were there. I kind of felt that, and then so when I went to the theater and watched the movie, I was like, this is exactly how I saw it in my head, because it was just that clear on the page.
Yeah, that's just like such a gift. I mean, what a genius. I mean, it's amazing.
If only we could all be
right.
as talented.
I know.
But I think we're about to wrap up here, and I want to kind of want to give you the same spiel I give everyone else, mostly because it's a fun one. But we have a what's in the box segment. In the box, we got a bunch of movies, and these are movies that are important to you, or you feel that are underseen. More people should see them. What's a movie you'd like to put in the box?
Oh man. Well, if it's just one movie lately that I would put in the box, Joyride. I've been like screaming the praises of that movie. I thought it was so funny. It just came out. It was a Lionsgate movie. It came out a couple months ago, and I was like, that movie is a treasure, man. It is so damn funny.
So my friend's podcast, the Film Vault, Anderson, they were talking about Joyride, and he talked about it, but he also pointed out there were like 6 different movies called Joyride. Which one specifically?
Sorry, this is the one with Sherry Cola that just came out, about the 2 friends that go to Asia to find the one friend's birth mom. And I'm a big, like, Sierra Ramirez was in Molly Singer. She's on the show Good Trouble. Sherry Cola is on that show. I think Sherry Cola is like a superstar. I'm like, I can't wait for anything that she's in. I think she's just amazing actor.
Okay, I think I found it here. Where is it? Okay, yeah. All right, I will put that one in, and
Oh, it's so good.
I will specify the Sherry Cola one.
Yeah.
Adele Lim, director.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll definitely put that in there. And Andy, let's get the so Reeducation of Molly Singer comes out on this Friday.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I'm actually flying to Peoria, Illinois, the home of Zach Shear, who plays Stu, and we're watching it in the theater in his hometown with like 200 of his friends and family. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, that's really the best way to watch comedies. Because you can watch I watched this one on the screener by myself, and I thought it was funny, but I think comedies and horrors work best with a crowd because you get them going. You're gonna get scared, or you're gonna laugh, and that's the best way to do it. And I'm glad to see movies like this coming out in theaters again. Because he crapping on the superhero movies and the blockbusters, but I mean, they used to be just the summer season. They've gotten through like all year and kind of push a lot of smaller movies out, and that seems to be not the case anymore, so I'm glad to see it turn around. But yeah, this is in theaters, digital on demand. Go watch it in theaters if you can.
That's right.
September 29th. And congratulations.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right, thank you, Andy, for joining me, and we'll talk to you later.
Anytime. Thank you, man.